should be back.
He's supposed to be back.
Should
He
be back.
probably could maybe last week. That wasn't kind of his kind of game anyway. He'd rather cover him than play hard.
What, he just sprained something in his knee or something?
Had a bone.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome to Furman Football Weekly, joined today, of course, by head coach Clay Hendricks, and our players today are quarterback Tyler Huff and linebacker Braden Gilby. Furman now 4-2, 2-1 in Southern Conference play, coming off that fine 21-10 win at the Citadel Charleston on Saturday. Home this Saturday afternoon. Good to be home 2 o'clock with Western Carolina at Paladins Stadium. And we'll begin as usual, Coach, with some opening comments.
Yeah, again, I appreciate you being here. Certainly excited about the win we got on Saturday in Charleston. I told our team this morning we're a little different schedule today and tomorrow. We're on fall break, which I hopefully helps us a little bit, frees us up a little bit. And I told our guys, having a chance to be part of a game's been played 102 times. That's pretty neat, and to go play well. I thought after the disappointment from the week before, I just came out and had a great week of prep, which was a hard week of prep because of what you were going to see, and really pleased, how we started the football game. And I just can't say enough about what we did defensively. Hold a team like that. I think they averaged a little over 2 yards a carry and take out a couple of the quarterback scrambles, which is part of the game. But, we talked about attacking. I mean, it was pretty obvious to everybody that was there. They attacked all day. And I think probably the biggest challenge was we created a few more third and longs that you don't normally think you have in those games, which creates a few more challenges. But just really pleased how we played over there. And I thought offensively, getting Tyler back. I think a lot of people got to remember Tyler. I think Tyler's played about 3.5 games in a year and a half. And he started so well this year. I think the expectations are to a point. I know there's some things he wants to do better, and I think we will do better. And I thought we ran the ball really well, efficiently. Got to a point in the game where I just felt like, it was, control the clock, run the football, play defense, play a little bit of field position. We did some good things in the kicking game, and but it's always great to go down there and get a win, and excited to be back in the conference this week, playing maybe the first real home Saturday game we've had. I know we were here 2 weeks ago, but it's a little different with all the hurricane preps. So I'm excited to be back here, and we came out of the game really pretty healthy. Those games are always tough, and you have the normal. That's a black and blue kind of game, and you have those kind of injuries, not really injuries, but a little banged up, but really came out pretty healthy. We'll get a couple of guys back maybe we didn't have last week, and we're excited for a good week of prep, get ready for a really, really talented West Carolina team that's coming in here. With that, any questions you may have?
Coach, something I failed to ask you the other day, but tell me about this first touchdown, and specifically, not something you haven't run before, and the trust you have in Devin Abrams to get the snap and do what he did. And I think, being this two-back set there with about every tight end on the roster and on the play, kind of set the tone for the day in terms of running.
Well, it did, and I actually, probably Dom's still our first guy to be in there. I think Dom was actually maybe out at the time, and but Devin certainly would work a couple of guys there. And yeah, it was you try to think that it's a little hard to account for all those guys. And I tell you, another guy, Myan Hicks, came in and made a great block at the point of attack. Another young guy that's going to be a really good player for us. And but no, it's they done a pretty good job against people down there, keeping them out or making it tough on them, and be able to get it in their first try was nice. And had been ready to use it some more, and just didn't have to.
Tyler, first of all, what did it feel like to be back in there? And secondly, just that first drive, it really looked like you guys gained some confidence, and you've really opened the games well all season. Just talk about that.
Yeah, it was good to get back out there. I was frustrated with being injured, but Jace came in and played a great game last week, so happy with that. The first drive, we executed very well. Our big thing, we always wanted to start fast, especially against a team like that. If we get up early, make them play from behind. It's hard with that kind of offense to play from behind and come back. So we're real excited with that. We executed. I think we got positive yards just on every play, so we're happy with that.
Tyler, my suspicion is that there are people who have an easier time than you protecting your arm? I know that you didn't run the ball. Was it difficult? Did you play any different? Did you try to protect yourself from injury? Did it take anything away from your game?
No, sir. This week I didn't have to scramble or run around or anything this week. I mean, my guys up front did a great job. We didn't have to drop back and throw it a whole lot. Like I said, our running game, whenever we took control of the ball and took control of the clock, we handed it off to Dom and Dev and KT, and they just did their thing. So I didn't really have to be in a position where I had to run. Let the athletes and the people better with the ball than me do what they can with the football. So nothing changed for me. It was just give it to the better players.
Braden, 6 games in a row now, you guys are shut out to your opponent in the fourth quarter. I imagine there's a lot of pride in that defensive unit and that accomplishment, and you'd like to extend it some more.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with the defense, what we've done. We're tied for first in turnovers, too. Haven't really let anyone score. It's a great feeling to shut everyone out in the fourth quarter like we have.
Coach, you're talking about how good the defense played, and how big was that one series where, 19 plays, 11 minutes, and you hold them to a field goal?
Oh yeah, overcame the PI. A couple of third downs they converted. But no, that was huge. I mean, I don't know, they had it first and goal inside the 5. I think is what it was. And I mean, I've heard Coach Vaughn say it. A triple option team. I would bet you their percentage is pretty high, scoring touchdowns when they get in those situations. No, that was huge. I think we played. We helped each other out quite a bit the other day. A little bit of field position. I thought one of the best drives we had all day was the missed field goal drive. I think we ran a little over 7 minutes off the clock, and certainly disappointed we didn't get a field goal or get points out of that. But that was big in the game. A couple of conversions we had. I know Scott would love the shovel pass on 3rd and short there, and that one we talked a little bit there on the coach felt good about it, and like I told him, great call, afterwards, and obviously hit Parks on another one for that to show up. So that's things we have to be able to do, and but we played good complementary football, I thought, most of the day.
Speaking of that, Coach, obviously the defense has been dominant in the fourth quarter, but the offense also plays a role in that shutout, because I think, as in some of these games as they've gone along, it seems like your offensive line has been able to take more control as the game goes along, and your depth kind of paid off in the fourth quarter. Can you speak to the whole team being a part of that shutout in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I mean, I just told them, we made 2 trips to Charleston in 3 weeks, and we didn't have a player lose a play for a cramp. It wasn't as warm as it could be sometimes down there, but I think that's credit to lots of people, Andre Bernardi and his staff, just our conditioning. But it's to be able to go out and execute in those situations. And, certainly the turnovers in the third quarter were huge. But, if we get them, don't do anything with them, sometimes that's a downer. But just how we responded. I don't know if just me personally standing over there and we punched the second one in, man, it was like, you could hear the air come out of the balloon. And I thought from that point on, you felt really good about, being able to control the ball, make them go the full length of the field, which I wasn't sure they were capable of doing. And there's some things we got to clean up. I mean, a couple of the passes they hit were some mental issues on our part. We were really close on a couple of more and turning a 7-8 yard run into a huge play, and just being a little firmer in the block. Getting a hat on a hat when we should have been able to do that. Even the last drive, seemed like most of the fourth quarter they had 9 guys standing up there, and we didn't kind of really care, and which creates some opportunities for you if you truly get hats on hats. And we're still a work in progress, and Tyler's, we got to eliminate some turnovers. That has still hurt us a little bit. The play, the 2-minute drive we were doing, we were kind of right in form of stuff we've done all year, and I don't know. We had a 2nd and 6, had 3 timeouts, and I think Coach Roper will tell you probably like to have that little series over again. But even on the last pick, Ron Miller's wide open, and we just busted a little simple protection. The guy should never been chasing Tyler, and he just squared his shoulders. I have no doubt he'd have made that throw. But that, and then the only other, we had the one sack, I guess, was just a busted protection. Back didn't take a guy off the edge. But I thought we protected well against a tough front to do it against. They give you a lot of different looks, and we're playing pretty good up front. We really are. That group's been really solid, and they'll have to continue to do that if we want to do the things we want to do down the stretch.
Braden, this is obviously a completely different offensive look. I think against Mercer last week, their linebacker had a couple interceptions. How does the opponent change what you do as a linebacker in this type of game?
Citadel runs triple option. They really didn't have a guy that was in there they trusted to read. From what we could tell, it was really predetermined calls, like telling them where to give the ball, where to pitch it, and it wasn't like reading any D linemen. So I was really like a glorified defensive lineman. I didn't really have a pass responsibility, which took a lot off my plate. As a linebacker, you're really pressured to be in the run game and pass. So I was really just mainly run defense this game because that's what they're going to try to do is just run the ball down your throat. So I was playing really like 2 yards or 3 yards off the ball, just ready to come downhill and play in the B gap.
And Coach, I just want to ask you, have you taken out the film from the Western Carolina game last year, and what have you learned from that game that you can carry into this one?
Well, I mean, yeah, we do. I mean, it's the same staff. They have a new defensive coordinator. A number of the same plays. They have a major influx of transfers again, but the offensive system hadn't changed any. And yeah, I mean, the thing that stood out in that game to me a year ago was we talked about this morning. Too many big plays on defense, and then offensively, we actually moved the ball really well. Didn't score a point in the fourth quarter, and had a big turnover on a punt. Well, big turnover. It became a turnover in the fourth quarter that didn't get reviewed, but we didn't score any points in the fourth quarter. So that's kind of what it came down to. And they've scored points on they've scored a lot of points. I think the quarterback's been in and out a little bit with some injury-wise. I hadn't watched enough of it. I watched a few games. We'll get really rolling on that today. But they're a really talented group now, and you pull the tape measure out and height and weight and speed and all that stuff. They got talented guys at lots of places and got a good system. That's Coach Bell's been extremely successful. Last year they played with a 6-year quarterback. I think he was a 3-school 6-year quarterback, same system. He was really, really talented. He was a true dual threat guy, even being a big guy, and he hurt us badly, and we've been hurt with some quarterback runs. Got hurt with some Saturday, but it was really a little bit more of somebody wasn't where they were supposed to be, and if that's the case, and we've tackled better, and we'll have to tackle really well, Saturday to have a chance, and then again find a way to stay on the field, score points, because again at the end of the day we got to continue to be productive, and we still need to find a way to score more points.
Braden, until 2 weeks ago, Western Carolina was putting up big numbers of points against everyone. And 2 weeks ago, they had a zillion yards but didn't get it in the end zone. Last week was the first time that they have been greatly limited. They weren't productive on offense against Mercer. What did Mercer do that you can emulate?
Really not sure. I haven't really gotten a chance to look at the tape yet. We've been practicing today, so I'll get a chance to look at that later this afternoon.
Well, I can answer it. I've seen it. I think they threw 5 picks. At least 5 picks. I think they pulled the quarterback at halftime. It's 42-0. I think threw a pick first play of the game. It was one of those days if it could go wrong, it went wrong, and it did. And Mercer looks like they do every. I don't think it was any sophisticated something they changed. They just played well, and got their hands on balls. And it's a little bit of nature sometimes how it goes in those kinds of offenses. You have those days where it's a little tough, but they want to run it, they want to throw it, and they've got a kid spin around it does that, and again got talented guys lots of places, and we'll look at it and move the ball up and down against Sanford. I watched that game quite a bit. We were getting ready for that game and just missed opportunities. They couldn't get the ball in the end zone when he got down there. Again, sometimes a little more challenging to run it in. when you're throwing it around as much as they do. But I think they'd like to run it as well. So, but I will try to certainly watch that and learn what we can. And again, excited to have them at least come into our place.
Tyler, you went through ROTC at PC and you're commissioned second lieutenant in the Army. Talk to us a little bit about your commitment as far as being a reservist, and will you go active duty after you're finished playing football here and get your degree?
Yeah, so my commitment, I have to serve for 8 years, and because I went in reserves. If I was to go active, I'd have to serve for 6. But so I'm in the reserve unit downtown. We have drill once a month on the weekends, but with games and all that stuff, so I make it up during the week. So I'll go down to the office and just bust out some work for them. 2 days out of the week, I'll just make it up with my commander. But the Army stuff, it's not that much of an influence or impact on football or nothing like that. I had to make sure I fulfill that commitment.
Coach Braden was saying he hadn't taken a look at some of the film yet. You had. My question would be, when do you start preparing? Immediately on the drive back from the Citadel? What do you look at specifically? And then offensively and defensively, these guys can talk a little bit about what they look at during the week to prepare.
Well, the drive back, I usually like to try to enjoy it. We tell our guys about enjoying wins that day, and then we got to move on the next day. So I don't usually watch a lot of it. I tell you one thing I have done. I've tried to throughout the year watch a little bit ahead. I've watched a little bit of even probably everybody we've played. Maybe I pull out a quarter here. Maybe it's just a quarter of their offense or a quarter of their defense. Certainly in certain games, I've seen Western against Sanford because we played them. Later in the year, you see that a little bit more. But Sunday really for us. And normally we've been practicing on Sunday. We didn't this week because of fall break. So we get rolling pretty heavy on Sunday. And new defensive coordinator this year. He was there last year. So you can see lots of similarities. You can see some subtle differences. The Citadel guy had been there for quite a while, so you have a little more stuff to rely on, past history. And then you're trying to watch people that you think are a little bit more like you. Mercer's defensive structure is quite different from our defensive structure. Sanford probably a little more similar. Just East Tennessee, some of those people. So, I don't know, you try to pick and choose a little bit. We watched the Georgia Tech game earlier in the year. We had seen them, against Clemson. So, I don't kind of like getting to that week not having seen anything on anybody, when you get to that point. So.
What about you guys on the offense and defense? Are there specific things that you look at, or are there cut-ups? Or I'm just kind of curious as to how you prepare during the week, looking at the opponent.
First thing I kind of do, I try to watch them, just watch the full game first, just to get a full feel for it, both sides of the ball, just see how that team operates as a whole. And then I'll go more in depth. I'll look at what they do on third down. What do they do whenever we're coming out, the deep offense is backed up. Some of their goal line stuff, and then what kind of blitzes they do on third and long, third and short, third and medium, that kind of situation.
Defensively, like the linebacker room, we like to split up responsibilities. So half of us will work on skill position, half of us will work on non-skill O-line, D-line, or O-line, and basically look for tells, like individual tells, like if they're giving away a play pre-snap with an alignment or anything like that. We just look for the little nitty-gritty things that you can get away with knowing a play before the play's actually coming. Just try to call it out and alert everyone.
Braden, you've had good defenses here the last couple of years, and obviously this year as well. But I thought maybe taking it to another level this year has been the turnovers. And obviously you want to get turnovers always. But was it a point of emphasis this offseason? Was that something y'all kind of talked about a good bit more?
Yeah, so as a defense, we have Turnover Tuesday, which is you got to get 2+ turnovers. And if you don't, it's up downs for the whole defense. And if you get them, the defensive coordinator, we get to give him some up downs. So we've really met that every week except for Sanford week, which result, you see the result. So all offseason and camp, we've done that and really just put emphasis on attacking the ball after tackling, like wrapping them up, getting someone to come in. Even when we're not in full pads or anything, just punch at the ball constantly as we're going through the drills and whatnot.
And as guys get them, I guess that just inspires others to. Everybody wants a piece.
Yeah, no, like older guys, you'll see them getting on younger guys at practice. Like if they pull up and don't attack the ball or punch at the ball or rake at the ball, you're like, come on, man, like you got to step up. Like everyone's doing it but you. It's really just an accountability thing.
Coach, they were, I think, leading the nation in sacks,
Yeah.
coming into last week, and I don't know if they got one this week or not, but what is different? Are they blitzing every down, or is this just like coverage sacks, or?
No, well, there were a couple games they had their opponent vastly outmanned, and so I think you always got to, it's like statistics, you got to be a little careful sometimes how you look into statistics. I know they're leading the country in total offense, and they're good offensively, there's no doubt, but again, you try to keep it a little bit in context. Some of it's just been, four-man rush, winning one-on-ones. Some have been some pressures. There's usually a reason why. Sometimes the guy makes a really good pass rush. Sometimes the quarterback holds the ball. But no, they've done a good job getting after quarterback, creating negative plays. And they seem to maybe be a little more aggressive in that aspect this year, maybe than they were a year ago. A year ago was the first year, for that staff. But they've certainly been productive with it. I don't know if they got one last week or not. I think the quarterback slipped once that I know probably gets credited with that. But the game last week, it just got out of control. I mean, got out of hand right away, and just some big plays and the turnovers, and it just it's hard to judge a lot by that game. Anything really, just looking at it.
I noticed, I just looked at the stats of the Western Carolina game, and I assumed that Mercer probably kept the ball away from them, but that's not the case. Western had only 240 yards offense, but had higher possession time. I was going to think that the best way to stop a high-powered offense is to keep it away from them. And is that what you go in trying to do, or is that irrelevant in this game?
I mean, it's the Citadel analogy, with what they do. And, I mean, at the end of the day, when you get the ball, you got to be productive with it, and can you score points? And, we were, I think, number 6 team in the country last week in time of possession for the year. I think Citadel was number 3. I'm sure they probably had the ball a little longer than we did Saturday. But, I think we had Coach Roper had a good, and maybe first time him truly calling it versus a triple option team. You try to prep these guys as, hey, the call sheet's got to be smaller. We ran 97 plays. Actually ran 102 plays. 97 that counted the week before against Samford. Average number of plays against the Citadel this year has been 54 on offense. We had 54 on Saturday. But we scored almost as many points Saturday as we did against Samford on 97 plays, because we weren't nearly as efficient or productive, So again, it just goes back being productive. So
That tournament is increasingly irrelevant.
I agree. I mean, I agree. It's what do you do with it? And then Mercer didn't have very much because they were scoring with it, scoring pretty quick. So they didn't possess the ball.
And Tyler, you're new to the program, and is this offense different from what you have been in before? And do you like what it is right now?
No, it's not that different. I like the way he coaches it and teaches the QB. It's not different or difficult by any means. I'm a little frustrated with how I've played. I feel like I'm holding us back these past 2 weeks. Charleston Southern and this week both having 2 turnovers. And that's something that Coach Hendricks and Coach Roper have harped on, that eliminate the turnovers, and I haven't done that. So I feel like me as a quarterback shouldn't be holding us back, but I'm frustrated with that. But I'm excited what Roper has for us, and like I said, he's done a really good job teaching the QBs. It just comes down to me doing what he's taught me. So that's.
And Braden, you've been in the program for a while, and how do you feel now as you're winding it down versus when you first came into the program?
I'm just excited for the team as a whole. Like, we're really putting it together this year offensively and defensively. I felt like past years it's been one-sided. Couldn't really get it all together. I feel like this year is the best I've really felt as a whole team. Really good feeling.
Coach, how's Ryan Miller feeling? Any of the D linemen a little banged up on Saturday, and any updates on
Yeah,
injuries?
no, I think a lot of the stuff we had Saturday was already sore stuff when they got there, and it just kind of got banged on a little bit. Ryan was a little mild knee. I don't even know if I'd call it a sprain. He practiced today. We don't do a lot out there, but he practiced today, and I expect him to be full go. And we made a concerted effort. Tyler, certainly he's been really productive with his feet, and that was a concerted effort, to not, maybe put him in quite that position last week. And I think maybe he had would you have one carry, and I think he called back on a hold, on a scramble. We have talked to him about sliding a little bit or trying to avoid a few hits, but his legs are still going to be a big part of what we do. Going forward, we're not going to change that. I think that's big for our offense. It's big for him, and again, for him, just never really played that much football. You think about it in the last year and a half. So I think that's only going to get better.
Coach, as we wind it up here, how do you feel about your team right now, 6 games in?
I feel good about our team. I still don't think we've come close to playing our best, even though we've played some really good football. I think we're playing really solid in special teams. Coach Spangler's done a phenomenal job with that and got those guys believing, and where they can. I think we're going to really see those guys make a difference in games going forward. And offensively, certainly we've had some. Getting Tyler back in there, I think, is huge for us. We're pretty darn healthy. We feel like we're a team that can hurt you in a lot of different ways. And, again, it's for us to continue to try to put it all together. And then we've been really solid defensively. We talked about the big play aspect of it. Certainly that'll be a huge part of this week. But, guys are playing hard and, being physical. And, we didn't beat ourselves a whole lot out there Saturday. And I think that's something we'd done a little bit of or tried to a few times. And so, no, we're excited where we are, and I think it's wide open. I think we got, probably, in the reality of it, you need a little bit of help, but most of it's right there in front of you. You get to control it yourself, and so, certainly this is a huge game for us this week.
Well, as always, thank you all very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Furman home this Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, taking on Western Carolina. Love to see everybody at the game, but if you're not, then we've got opportunities for you to listen and watch. The radio broadcast is available on the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville and 97.1 in Spartanburg, plus the Odyssey app and FurmanPaladins.com. Our pregame at 12:30 with Dan Scott, David Cobb, and Marcus McMorris. Also, it's available on ESPN+, so you got plenty of ways to listen and watch Furman Paladins this Saturday afternoon. Thanks for coming along today. This has been a Jeff Schetzel and Hunter Reed production.